Presented by Kamuk Ukulele Magazine, this is Ukulele Stories. Ralph Shaw, welcome to Ukulele Stories.
Hello, Cam. Nice to be here.
We were trying to decipher when we first met off air just then, and we think it was 2012, probably in Sydney, and then we went on to both perform at the Melbourne Ukulele Festival that year. A bit of a high period, I think, in Australian ukulele, that sort of era. What was it like for you?
Yeah, it really was. It was sort of a high point for the ukulele generally, I think. Now the ukulele is such a common thing; everybody knows about it. But at that point, it was still the domain of those that were in on it, and it was just kind of coming to an end. That visit was made possible by the wonderful John Chandler. He got in touch with ukulele clubs, and the Melbourne Ukulele Festival had booked me. And I was there for a month. So that was my first experience of Australia, just traveling around, seeing, golden beaches wherever you go. And yeah, I even saw a kangaroo at one point.
That's good. In the wild or in a zoo?
I'd been there about 3 weeks. And I said to somebody, I've been here in 3 weeks. I still haven't seen a kangaroo. What's going on? And he said, oh, we'll find one for you. So got me in the car straight away. And off we went. I'm trying to remember where it was. It was somewhere where there was it was like a university campus. And there they were. The kangaroos were grazing on the grass.
Brilliant. I'm not sure I've ever asked you this question. So what actually led you to start playing the ukulele in the first place?
Well, it started with a banjo I'd found in the attic. It wasn't a very good one, and so I saved up some money to buy a car with, and I bought a better banjo, a 5-string banjo. So that was my instrument as stringed instruments go. I went to Vancouver and auditioned for a vaudeville show that they had going on, and I sang Leaning on a Lamppost with this 5-string banjo. And the woman who was directing the show, her name's Bev Adams, and she's still alive, going strong. She's in a care home, and we're still in touch. She said, "You need to do that song on the ukulele, and I've got one for you." So she gave me this ukulele that had belonged to her son, and it was awful. I changed the strings on it, and it was a bit better. And I got addicted to it. This was the era, like 1990. Everybody had Walkmans when they were walking on the street. Well, not me. I had my ukulele. I had my gardening outfit on and just strumming away, playing when I'm cleaning windows all the way. So it was that addiction that so many ukulele players discover. Once you start, you just can't put it down.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, that's similar to my story in that, I was a bit younger than you, but I started around that same time, 1989, 90, getting my first uke and asking my relative to show me how to play George Formby songs. But it was a lonely time, wasn't it, for ukulele, the 90s?
It was, but that's also what was cool about it. Like just trying to find the information, how to, I was listening to George Formby and going, how does he do it? You can't figure it out. You can't make it up. And I was asking everybody. I was, charango players from the Andes and, you name it. Anybody that could play a stringed instrument well, I was saying, how does he do it? And no one could tell me. It was only when I came on a visit to England and met Dennis Taylor, who was the president of the George Formby Society. He showed me the split stroke, the legendary split stroke. I left his house thinking, oh, I can do it now. And by the time I got home, I'd forgotten it again. I had to spend another afternoon with him being shown how to do it. That learning period was wonderful. And the other cool thing about that time, because of our independent loneliness, everybody doing their own thing, people developed their own style of playing, their own style of performance, so that when they had the early festivals, you got there and it was an incredible smorgasbord of very different performers who just happened to use the ukulele. And that's one thing that's changed now, I think, because we've all become teachers and we've taught other people what we do. And everybody sounds like us, so the ukulele has become much more of a general thing where everyone sounds kind of the same now.
That is so true. And, I was just talking with, you might remember Rose Turtlertler from Melbourne.
I do, yeah, lovely, yeah.
Yeah, so I actually just caught up with her at a uke fest down in Tasmania where she lives now. We were talking about how the scene has changed. And I think you've actually hit the nail on the head because we were kind of wondering why it's a little bit homogenized now in some ways. And it's great that millions of people are playing the ukulele, but I think actually, yeah, you've got a great theory there on why it is like it is, because yeah, their individuality to some extent has been lost just through natural causes, really.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think there's any way around that. But it also that same kind of theory also shows me why Australians are such interesting performers and musicians. They're far away from, just geographically. The whole country is far away from other places, and then you can be in Australia. You can be far away from other Australians. So it just seems to me there's a lot of cool and different, interesting, weird stuff in Australia that is something else.
Yeah. Well, you didn't start out as a musician, though. You did a degree in applied physics, I believe. What led you down that path to begin with?
Everybody, parents, teachers, the system.
The man.
Yeah, I've always been a musician. I was a little kid lying in bed just thinking of songs and singing them, and then my mum telling me to, stop singing and go to sleep. The music was always there. If that had ever been proposed as an option, I would have, just gone that way the whole time. But nobody did. Music, art, that you can do that in your spare time. But first of all, get yourself a degree to fall back on. So, yeah, I did, passably well at school and went to Liverpool Polytechnic, got a degree in applied physics. Piece of paper to fall back on, which is the worst advice ever. I don't know if you've ever tried falling back on a piece of paper, but it hurts. It really was terrible advice because I had no interest or passion for physics at all. In fact, what I learned was that there are other people that are way better at this than me, and it's pointless me pursuing this. However, while I was trying to memorize all that stuff, I learned to juggle, I learned to play the banjo, and all these other distractions that just kept me sane. And by the time I got my degree, I had most of the skills required to become a clown, ironically. So when I went to Canada, I discovered that was a way into being a self-employed entertainer, was to be a clown. And I already had the ukulele by then. So the first part of my act was to walk in with a big guitar case, open that up, and then take out the little ukulele, which people didn't really know about at that time. And so that was the first joke of the show, was to take out the uke and play a song on it. So
Mm. Did you ever work as a physics teacher or anything, or work in physics at all?
sort of. I was on what's called a sandwich course. So you study as a sandwich with working in industry. So I did 6 months working at a wool industries research association in Leeds, which was bizarre. They were testing anything made of wool, whether it was carpet tiles or sweaters. They had machines that would make those little balls on your sweater, and then they would count how many, balls had happened, and they'd had people in white lab coats walking up and down carpets and then twisting the feet on them. It was like one of those underground bunkers in the James Bond films, where they're trying out all the gadgets. It was like that, only everything was wool related.
Wow.
Anyway, I did that. When the next 6 month session came along, I asked my dad if he had any contacts back in Canada. He had worked there as in the subarctic, and he wrote a letter. And sure enough, I happened to get the same job that he had done when I was born at the McGill University Subarctic Research Station in northern Quebec. So I had 6 months there, and then followed by another year after I got my degree. They had me come back again. So I was doing seismology, I was measuring weather, and then helping, the students and professors that were up in that area studying in whatever field they were doing, whether it was nature, counting parasites in fish, studying the trees, whatever. And I would be there as a sort of a helper and a caretaker for the research station. And that was a fantastic time because it was supposed to be sort of science, but you're there in an isolated place in the subarctic, and it gave me lots of time to just have fun. We made our own entertainment. So that's where I was writing songs and parodies, and we'd have parties every weekend, and I'd just come up with stuff to entertain people. So that gave me the bug, really, to be an entertainer. And I loved being there, but it was such a small isolated place, I knew I had to go somewhere else to pursue performing. So that's kind of how I ended up in Vancouver in the end.
Mm. How did you break it to your dad that you're going to go to Vancouver and play the ukulele instead of working in physics?
Well, sort of a double-edged sword. In one sense, he was good. He'd been a teacher. He was a former head teacher that he'd worked with. She said, "Oh, how's Ralph doing with his physics?" He says, "Oh, he doesn't do physics now. He's become a clown." And she went, "Oh, you must be very disappointed." And he stood up for me. He said, "Oh no, being a clown, it's a very proud profession. It has a long heritage." So he stood up for me in that case. However, after I'd done a research station stint and I was living back at home, I'd been there 8 or 9 months, just going off with my banjo, busking, and he was actually getting fed up of this. When are you going to get a proper job now? What are you going to do? And this was before I became a clown. I thought, right, I'll go back to Canada, and so I went to Canada. No thought of emigrating. I just thought I'd met somebody from Vancouver, so that's where I went, and that's where everything else started. So yeah, so I've sort of been pushed out of the nest a little bit at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you ran the Vancouver Ukulele Circle. I think you started doing that in 2000. Did you actually found the club, or were you just sort of the one running it?
Yeah, no, I founded that. I told you I had the lesson with Dennis Taylor, who was president of the George Formby Society. Well, he got me to come to the Yorkshire Ukulele Circle. For the first time, I experienced that energy of having, I don't know, there's about 40 people, all with banjo ukuleles, all playing at the same time, having a thrash, and thinking, this is awesome. This is, everyone was smiling, the energy in the room, the sound of it all. It was so new, so cool. And that stayed with me. So I went back to Vancouver just with the thoughts of going, wouldn't it be great if we could have something like that? And I told this to somebody who, again, another lonely ukulele player trying to find someone. Somebody in a music shop had mentioned me to her, so we got together and I told her of the idea. She said, "You've got to do that." She said, "I'll pay for the ad in the local paper and let's do it." So we paid for 3 ads. We had 9 or 10 people come for quite a long time. It was it literally was a circle of around between a dozen and 2 dozen people for about 2 years. But then it grew. We ended up in the St. James Hall in Kitsilano, and at the peak we had well over 200 people. It was about 230 people there, I think, at one point, and always around 140 plus, and that was fantastic. It had a stage, it had lighting, we had a sound guy, so it was just a combination of me leading the singing, and then other people getting up and being able to perform for the first time. So
Mm.
people discovered their performing abilities and ukulele playing, and we had a bass player. The kind of thing. All ukulele clubs, get their own flavor and depending on the people and the place. Yeah.
Yeah, well, at that time, early 2000s, the kind of internet had really kicked in, and the ukulele scene, the third wave, as I call it, was really beginning. 2004 here, Rose Turtlurtler, aforementioned, put on a mini festival here, one day sort of thing, and that led to a lot of ukulele clubs sprouting up in Australia. And you, of course, did the complete ukulele course in 2003, a VHS at that time. I got it on DVD, and it was actually I think the first instructional ukulele video I'd ever seen. I bought it immediately, and it was great, and it is great. And I remember you interviewing you actually for Camuk, the magazine, and you talking about how you filmed it all in one long shot. So, can you tell us that story? It's an incredible one.
That video, it looks incredibly dated now. Like you look at it now, and compared to what everybody's doing with video, it really does look naff. But having said that, the way it came about was I was busking one day in Vancouver, at Granville Island. It was a rainy day. This is an example of get out and perform no matter what, because you never know what's going to happen. And there were a couple there visiting from Seattle who were doing the Dusty Strings Ukulele Festival at a music shop there. They were just trying it out. Wondered if I could go there and teach a 2-hour workshop. And I'd never taught a workshop in my life. But at the same time, there was a local music store in Vancouver. The fella there was going, hey, you should do a ukulele teaching video. And I know a guy who films them, so you should do that. So I started to put it all together in my head. And I thought, you know what? If I can do a video, maybe I can teach a workshop. So I constructed the whole thing. I just figured out everything I knew about how playing the ukulele from beginning to the split stroke and everything in between, and put it into a format where it just led from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, till I had 2 hours worth of that. I did it as a performance. As a way of learning, it was probably pretty useless, just showing you one thing after the next, and here it is. You know, you don't get to practice; you just get to go, "Whoa, what's all, right? That's it. That's how to play the ukulele." And so, and then I condensed that 2 hours into 1 hour, and then I went off for my recording session with a fella that had the video studio, and it was recorded on tape that was exactly 60 minutes long. So that's what I did. I timed it. It came out to be about 59 and a half minutes, something like that. It was like literally behind the camera, just sweating, going, "When's it going to end? It has to end soon. This is, and just wound it up perfectly. And there were hardly any edits in it. Just one or two slight little flubs and pauses that he edited. That was it. I designed my own cover, which was awful. I remember showing it to somebody that wanted to buy it, and they'd been excited about buying it until they saw the cover, and my heart sank. I thought, "Oh, that's no good." So I got somebody to design a proper cover, and then it took off because, like you say, there was nothing else at that time, really. And for quite a while, my DVDs were the first thing on Google. If you Google ukulele DVD, it was always number one on the ranking till everybody else figured out that ukulele was a thing to do. So
It's still a great video. I'm gonna watch it again. I've decided.
oh dear. I'm kind of embarrassed at it compared to what it is now, but again, I said at the time it was pretty good. I thought
It was amazing.
yeah.
It was amazing, and you got to take it into context. That's the thing.
Yeah, you do.
Your first book, The Ukulele Entertainer, came out in 2011, and I thought it was a revolutionary book, really, because no one had ever spoken about the ukulele in such kind of eloquent terms, with really nice stories and metaphors and philosophy. Really, I kind of see it as a philosophy book, and I know you based it, well, at least the title, on The Complete Angler, the famous sort of how-to book.
Yeah.
Yes. So what led you to do that, and what sort of made you want to write? Had you always been a writer? I mean, obviously you're a songwriter.
Well, that's really nice of you to say that. Very, very thoughtful and kind, Cam. It's nice to hear that. I don't get a lot of feedback. I do in the sense that what I write starts off as email pieces. So people do comment on it. But yeah, you obviously read it and noticed it. I have always written and enjoyed writing, but I can't just write. I can't just be an author. I need an audience. I think I'm a performer, even with the writing. So I ended up on the email list of somebody who does writing advice, and they put out a newsletter. And it was the newsletter itself. I thought, oh, I could do a newsletter. So that's how it began. I'll do it about ukulele stuff, and I'll write about ukulele stuff. And I started off with about 50 people, just friends, colleagues on my email list. And it just grew. Every time I went to a festival, I collected more email addresses, and people told people, and ended up with, a few thousand people on there. Yeah, it's a sort of a three-pronged approach to the art of ukulele performance. To me, most people that play the ukulele are actually singers, and the ukulele is the backup band. So it's about singing. It's about playing the ukulele, playing well, and how do you do that? And it's also about performance. So that's the art of getting up in front of people and performing. So in general terms, that's what I'm writing about. And then putting in, as you say, just stuff from my life. I mine my own experiences, things that have happened, and I like the way writing works, and I don't know how it's going to happen until I sit down and start writing. I'll start off with an idea, but then I discover it reminds me of something else, and I'll pull that in and that in, and the threads come together and then weave themselves into a narrative that ends up being about 1,000 words. Just these little pieces. At some point, I realized I had enough for it to be a book. I found myself an editor, and together we found some way to organize these pieces so they were kind of generally in sections. So here's an area about playing, here's an area about performance with stage fright, etc. Yeah, it's another outlet to be able to write, and like you say, it's philosophical. It's like why do we do it? What are we trying to achieve? And my approach is that there are people out there that want to read it. They're going through all the same things that I've gone through, so they're quite common things. Maybe not things that people often think about, but it's I sort of hone in on them and just expand on them, or just notice them. Like there's in my newest book, there was one on not losing your cool as a performer. It's got something about anger management. I saw a performer, he just lost it, got really upset about something, became really angry. But that moment, I thought, that's what everyone's going to remember. It doesn't matter how good you are as a performer. If somebody sees you lose it like that, you've done it now. And I thought that's an important thing for people to know, because you don't want that to happen even once. So if you read about that in a book, you can make yourself a mental note to not do that.
Yeah, well, they're extremely helpful. Your latest one is called "Wings Are Handy Things." What is like maybe a couple of things you think people fail to do that kind of leads to bad performance?
Ooh, now you're asking. There really is a lot of nuance. It doesn't matter how good you get. There's always more that you can do.
Getting used to the performance space, I think, is a good one. Trying to go into a performance space beforehand to get the kind of lay of the land, because it can be so stressful when you get in and you have to plug in and you don't know where you are and you don't know what the lights are doing, and all of a sudden, you're in a panic.
There's one thing that I've always said to people, and I've written about, is when you're practicing at home, practice as if you're performing. Make it as real for yourself as possible. Even if you have to line up your teddy bears on the couch and perform for them, set a microphone. It doesn't have to be switched on, but it's there in your face, and then just introduce your songs so that you can flub your lines. You go, oh, now what do I say here? Oh, I don't know. So you're making your mistakes before you ever set foot on the stage. Make that as real for yourself as possible, because when you get out there, there's a whole lot going on. You're not just playing a song anymore. There's lots of distractions, lots of stuff happening. Even like setting up your gear, like set it up at home and plug it in, unplug it. There was one awful time I had the whole sound system. I set it all up, and it was for a pilots association, and they all came in. They'd had their dinner. They all had the blazers. They were all dressed up. I was announced, and then I came on to perform. There's no sound. I hadn't connected the soundboard to the speakers. In front of everyone, I'd sort of unroll the wires and plug them in. That was the first 2 minutes of the show.
The first step really is getting the songs themselves polished, because when you don't have to worry about that, then you can kind of concentrate on the niggly little things that get you there.
And the thing is, you never really stop being worried about it. People ask me, because I'll say, oh, I'm a bit, little bit nervous about, what, you, Ralph? But you've done this for so long. You're so good at it. How could you be nervous? And you do, because as you get better, it's like the stakes get higher. The audiences get larger, and the expectations for what you can do get higher. So you don't want to let yourself down, and you can still forget lyrics. You can still forget anything. You will. It happens.
Your books speak quite a bit about stage fright. Have you ever experienced that yourself? And what are your kind of techniques for getting over it?
In all kinds of ways. I just find it fascinating because to be in the zone performing is just one of my favorite states. You know, like some people get it from riding a motorbike or climbing a cliff face. I love being on stage and, you know, when everything's going well and you can do no wrong. However, to get to that point, often have stage fright that's almost debilitating and is debilitating. And I find there's two kinds. There's one that's before you ever step on the stage. It's, you know, you've got a show coming up and you want to do a good job. It's the kind where you wake up in the night going, "Oh my God, I've got to do this thing. And how's it going to, what am I going to do?" And imagine yourself failing and forgetting things. And, you know, so that's one kind. Then there's how do you deal with it when you're actually on the stage and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm going to forget the next line of the song," and you do because you had that thought, right?
I've been there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so the first one in a way is worse because it kind of ruins your life. You've got a show coming up in about 2 months' time, but because it's at a festival, you think it's some big deal in your head. The reality is it doesn't really matter because it's just normal people that are going to be there, same as anywhere else. It's just people like you, and you sort of have to train yourself to realize that that's all it is. Nothing really matters. None of it really matters. But you still want to do a good job, so it matters too. I don't get that so much now. That sort of there's a show coming up, and you know, I panic. I'm much more relaxed about it. I don't know if it's just it could be just partly age, experience, being as prepared as possible. So I have things figured out. Yeah, and just philosophically thinking it's, you know, it's not that big a deal. The actual being on stage and having that form of stage fright where you forget stuff because your mind is starting to panic and have, I think they call it a brownout. A blackout is where you actually collapse, and brownout is where your brain collapses. And it's a funny thing. Like there, you know, I had it just the other day. I was going, "Oh, I'm about to lose it here. I could lose this," and the moment passed, and that's happened so often.
Mm,
And it's usually near the start of the show. You know, in the first song or two, it's whoa, it's like everything's about to fall apart, and then it doesn't. Then you carry on, and it's things are okay after that.
yeah.
I've heard other people give me techniques. Chalmers Doan, the great Canadian ukulele teacher, he uses his left and right brain. He said one time he found himself forgetting lyrics or about to, and he said this took extreme presence of mind. I've never done this myself, but he said he found himself counting the pictures that were on the wall of this place that he was performing in, and that task sort of distracted him. So his other half of his brain could get on with remembering, you know, what the lyrics were, you know.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. Because it's when you try, it's when you worry about it, when you try too hard, that's when words don't come to us. We all feel it. We all have it when you're trying to think of a film star and it doesn't pop into your mind. You know, you can see the face, but because you're trying to think of it, it doesn't come. And then it comes to you, you know, 3 hours later when you don't need it anymore.
Ah, the brain.
It's interesting.
It
That's
is.
why I write about it.
Yeah. Oh boy. Speaking of teaching there, I'm mentoring Chalmers. What do you enjoy most about teaching?
Oh dear. It's seeing somebody else's life get changed by them having the revelation, the realization that they can do something that they never thought they could do. And the wonderful thing about this is that anybody who can play an instrument, anybody who can play the ukulele even a bit, has the skill to set somebody else off on a similar path. And in my new book, Wings Are Handy Things, I write about performing, and there was a young woman on the front row just watching me and smiling through the whole show. And I thought, well, she's enjoying the show to an unusual extent. And she came up to me afterwards, and it turned out to be one of my daughter's friends. And she'd been at our apartment several years earlier. It was just one evening, and for whatever reason, I just showed her a few things on the ukulele. And she said that moment had made her realize that she could be a musician. And by then, by the time she saw me, she was playing several instruments and had a whole different life ahead of her. When I think of where the ukulele's taken me, to Australia and all over North America, and the people that we get to meet, or the other performers, it's a wonderful and rich life. Being musical is a great thing, and we recognize it in other people, even if we can't speak the same language. We can all love each other's music. So I think teaching to get people on that path is the great thing. However, that being said, I don't consider myself necessarily a great teacher in the sense that I know about music. I'm self-taught, and I kind of think that other people are in the main self-taught as well. So my self-teaching things, I show them what I did, and off you go. Now you do that. You don't really need a teacher. You just need to be shown some things, and then you teach yourself. I actually think that the whole teacher thing, to some extent, is a bit of a scam. We don't really need that weekly lesson. I appreciate that a lot of people really enjoy it and they get a lot out of that, but you don't have to have that to learn to play an instrument well. In fact, as we were saying at the beginning, you can actually be more of a unique player by inventing what you can yourself and then pick up what you can as and when you need it from others.
I think a lot of people who do the weekly lessons and things, they like the discipline of it as well, and the routine, which I guess is difficult to manufacture for yourself if you're not super keen on doing it, maybe.
Well, this is it, Cameron, because you see, it's unfair of me to judge anyone, however they want to play music, because I have that drive. I want to get out in front of people and perform. And in order to do that, I don't want to make an ass of myself. So I practice and I play as well as I can to be able to do that.
Do you do much teaching now?
No, very little, actually. My whole life changed around in 2017 because I came to England from Canada back to where I'm from because I realized that my parents were going to need some help. And it was perfect timing because both of them were showing real signs of dementia, much more than I'd realized. And it's only progressed. So I was able to be here all through the pandemic and take care of them. And for a few years, I've actually been more of a carer than a professional entertainer.
Mm.
Due to my association with Chris McShane, we had a double act called McShane and Shaw, so I was able to perform with him. But other than that, all the things I used to do in Vancouver, which was the ukulele circle, teaching workshops, traveling around, touring, all of that. I wasn't able to do any of that. So yeah, so life changes things around, and you just fit in music where you can. And where I am now, my parents are still around, but quite advanced now with the Alzheimer's. So I do local stuff. And we have a wonderful vintage cinema that was built in 1915, Penistone Paramount Theatre, and I put on shows there along the lines of the ukulele nights, but for singing. We do a big sing along. We do one at Christmas, and we have one coming up in May, sort of a spring summer sing along, and I have the words scrolling on the cinema screen, and then we have a live 5 or 6 piece band playing, and it has all the fun and energy of the ukulele strum-alongs with everybody singing together. So, and it's just down the road.
Yeah, that's terrific. I mean, I'm very sorry to hear about your parents, but obviously, congratulate you for going home and caring for them as you are. That's great. The link between music and dementia, how music can help with dementia, is quite an interesting topic, and it really is the only thing that actually lights up all of the brain at once is playing music and singing, and so it's an interesting research topic, and yeah, I just hope that more money is put into it because it could help a lot. I think if they kind of unlocked what was happening there when someone does play music.
Yeah, well, I became aware of this from quite an early point because the first kind of performance I did was busking, and then I heard about care homes. So I, sent my information off to care homes in Vancouver. So I've performed at hundreds of care homes, and time again, I had that moment where I'm singing a song that I've sung many times, so often, in fact, that the actual melody has kind of changed from the way it originally was. And you've got somebody there that isn't even able to talk, and they're singing now. And they're singing the correct melody, even though they haven't heard it in 60 years. So it really is an eye opener to see people come alive when when a certain song is played for them. And I'm still doing them now. I still do the care homes, and I've got a friend also who's doing a PhD in the sort of study that you're talking about. And what she's specializing in is using music while you're showing someone a task so that it helps them to remember how to do whatever task there is that they're doing if they're singing a song or hearing music being played. So that's what she's looking into, and finding that we can do a lot more if the right music's being played.
That's very interesting. It's almost like a trigger for memory. Yeah, that's incredible. Well, reversing a little bit to the McShane and Shaw, you did a lot of music together and some really amusing YouTube videos.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd only been here a couple of months. Yeah, when I came back to England, and he's someone I've known since I was a child. He ran the local folk club. He's a few years older than me, I'd been thinking it'd be great to perform with somebody else. Instead of always singing alone, it'd be nice to have someone to work with. And he was the only person I could think of that might fit the bill. And then he asked me to perform with him. So yeah, we started our McShane and Shaw double act. Again, this is something I write about in the book. Is finding that partner, that person that you can work with in that way, is quite a rare thing, because you need to be not identical abilities, but you've got to match each other's abilities. If one of you is of a certain level performance and playing wise, and the other person isn't, it just doesn't work out. Well, he and I, we just clicked together. We could play stuff. I'm a good lead singer. He could take harmonies, bam, just like that. He plays bass and just instrumentation. We both play ukulele, and then he could play something while I played my chromatic harmonica. And then we were writing songs and covering songs. So yeah, we developed quite a good act, which was just getting going when the pandemic hit. So then through the pandemic, we were able to, once we could get together, we start making videos. Yeah, and then just starting to get known. We did one or two festivals after the pandemic, and people getting to know about us. And then just September of last year, he phoned me up as we were about to go recording that morning, and told me he'd had to make the decision to stop doing McShane and Shaw.
Mm.
So he's just been having some health concerns, and he's still working on musical stuff. He does so many things. I was kind of amazed that he was doing so much anyway. He just couldn't do it all, so he had to stop the choir, McShane and Shaw, and he's sticking mainly to the teaching.
I guess there's another lesson learned there, isn't there, about getting into a partnership or a duo or a trio. That it can kind of end at any time when someone, gets ill or just doesn't want to do it anymore for a myriad of reasons. It could end.
It will end.
It
It
will
will
end.
end.
Like everything,
This
it will end.
yeah,
That's our
yeah.
philosophy for the day.
Yeah. So, but you don't know when, like it could be like the Rolling Stones and go on for decades, or it might just be a few months, and you just sort of have to treasure it while you have it, and enjoy it. Yeah, it was a great time, and we did some work that I'm really proud of,
Mm,
and now it's done, and that's it.
yeah. That leads perfectly into one of my potentially the last question. But what is next then for Ralph Shaw, King of the Ukulele?
Right. Well, I'm back to getting my feet on the ground, the boots on. My mum and dad are happily in a care home now. It got to be too much for me, and we had a family meeting, and I was told in no uncertain terms that I couldn't do it anymore. So they're happy, and I'm back to performing again, contacting the care homes, out busking again. and starting another duo. I've got a partner in life and music called Catherine, and she's a fantastic clarinet and saxophone player. And we're working on our duo called Bowtie and Petal.
Beautiful. I love clarinet, and that's going to go beautifully with the uke, I think.
Oh, Cameron, you're gonna love this. She sounds so good. You know when you hear those really good clarinetists like Acker Bilk playing "Stranger on the Shore," she sounds like that.
Oh, wow.
She's got the sound. She does some percussion as well. The saxophone, same thing. The big difference between us is that I'm a really get in your face kind of performer. With everything memorized. She's a reader, so you can put anything in front of her, and she can just play a night of music just sight reading, which I could never do in a million years.
No, me.
So again, we're complementary but completely different abilities. So it's interesting to see where it's going. So we haven't done many performances yet, but we're enjoying the process.
Well, that's very exciting. That's great. The final question, I often ask this one, but what does the ukulele mean to you? Because, I mean, we're talking about a ukulele story here, but the journey is a big part of it, and the ukulele's take on you on quite a journey.
Wow, that's an interesting question because in one sense, it means everything to me because of the journey that it's taken me on, and in another sense, it means nothing to me because it's the music that matters. It doesn't have to be a ukulele. I like to think that if I showed up at a gig and opened up the case and there's no ukulele in there, I could still do an hour, of something, that I'd have enough shtick that I could perform because that's the main thing. The ukulele is the tool, the conduit to be able to do that. So yeah, it's a double kind of a thing. I must say I did like the earlier time that we spoke of when you felt somehow special with a ukulele. Now we're just one of millions of ukulele players. But it used to be a bit of a cool in club, and it's developed, it's moved on. The goals that I used to have with it were, being able to play a George Formby song or write an original song and do that really well. And then I moved on to the baritone ukulele, and then from there, got myself a tenor guitar, which is similar. It's the same tuning as a baritone ukulele, but it sounds like a guitar, and that informs how you play it. So to me, I feel like I'm still playing a ukulele, but it doesn't sound like it, and I probably wouldn't be allowed to play it at a ukulele festival. I don't know how it works, but that's where it's leading me. So I'm still playing the banjo ukulele, of course, but the tenor guitar is where I'm going. Still four strings though. I'm not no interest in six strings at
Well,
all.
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, you should just go where the music leads you. It doesn't have to be ukulele, like you say. I think to go with your new hairstyle, your new flowing locks. In some ways, you're becoming more like Tiny Tim as well, because he was all about the music as well. The ukulele was secondary to his act, his singing, and his incredible knowledge of music.
Yeah.
And it was just part of the story. And that's the thing with this podcast as well. A ukulele story, it's only ever part of someone's story, and that's probably the most interesting part.
Yeah. It's funny that you should invoke Tiny Tim because I've never aspired to look like him or really be like him, except as a brilliant performer. But yeah, I have to admit, there's probably a lot more connection than I ever intended.
Well, maybe you could do a Tiny Tim tribute act alongside Bowtie and Petal.
Oh, here we go.
There it is.
Oh, tiptoe to the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me. A few wrong chords there.
Well, if that's not the place to end it, I don't know what is. So, no, that was fantastic. Thanks very much, Ralph. It's been a pleasure chatting to you after all these years, and hopefully we can catch up in person sometime soon.
Yeah, same for me, Cam. It's been very very enjoyable to talk to someone that that has dived into the ukulele world themselves and already knows me and what I've done. So it's yeah, really refreshing. I've enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Oh, pleasure. I mean, you're one of the originals, and so we had to have you on for sure. All right. Well, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All the best, my friend. See you next time, Cam. Keep plonking.
I will. Mr. Ralph Shaw, everybody. I highly recommend that you sign up for his excellent newsletter at ralphshaw.ca. Please rate and review Ukulele Stories on Apple Podcasts, and maybe tell your uke friends about it. Until next time, keep strumming and keep smiling. To take us out, here's Ralph with an original song called Everything is Free.
I work all day just to earn my pay, selling my life for $1. I work all week, but I'm not allowed to speak, so when the weekend comes I holler. People walk by me and they haven't got a clue. They wonder who the hell I am and why I do what I do. I dance and I sing everywhere I go. And here is the song now everyone knows. The birds are free, the bees are free, flowers are free and fleas are free. Hugs are free and kisses are free. All the little fishes in the seas are free. Trade is free, hassle is free. You can call toll free and do it hands free. Smile for free, be silly for free. Time is free and Willie is free. Kids play free, mothers work for free. My younger brother is a jerk for free. Walking's free and talking's free. At least that's what the politicians tell me. Your health is free if you have a free moment. Hear my plea. We're locked up in chains, so tight we can hardly breathe. But I believe my ukulele holds the key. I'm a lazy man, I'm a crazy man. I wanna be free, but I haven't got a plan. I don't fit in, cause I think it's a crime that others get to pay us for the use of our time. Heartbeats are precious, hours tick away. Your life runs out and you never had a say. Your time is over and the whistle blows. But here is the song now everyone knows. The birds are free, the bees are free, flowers are free and fleas are free. Hugs are free and kisses are free. All the little fishes in the seas are free. Trade is free, hassle is free. You can call toll free and do it hands free. Smile for free, be silly for free. Time is free and Willie is free. Kids play free, mothers work for free. My younger brother is a jerk for free. Walking's free and talking's free. At least that's what the politicians tell me. Your health is free if you have a free moment. Hear my plea. We're locked up in chains, so tight we can hardly breathe. But I believe my ukulele